Now, just what should we do about the do-gooder lawyers who continue to block government attempts to stop the invasion of illegal migrants on Britain? Some 40,000 have crossed the Channel this year alone. As you know, I've declared this a national emergency for over a year now because swaths of them are fighting-age Albanian men who Border Force say will work in our drug and sex trades. Albania, of course, is a NATO country with ambitions to join the EU, and my next guest highlights it's a popular holiday destination for Brits too. In fact, some 120,000 of us visit Albania each year. So, Rod Liddle, what exactly are these folk fleeing from?
They're fleeing from a very, very peaceful country which has got beautiful scenery, a lovely coastline and a very agreeable climate. I might flee there myself. I'm tempted to. The thing which interests me is that we only really started, or at least the mainstream media, the BBC and people like Emily, very well named Mateless, only started getting interested in Albania and the refugee crisis when a couple were dumped on a pavement in London overnight, or when there was overcrowding at Manston. Otherwise, they have no interest whatsoever in this crisis which we have. And their answer is always the same, that we've got to be nicer to the migrants. And at the same time, they resent any attempt to stop the boats from actually crossing the Channel. Now, this is hypocrisy. This is lefty hypocrisy at its best. Because if you stop the boats crossing the Channel, fewer people will die. If you encourage more boats to cross the Channel, more people will die. And I've had so many arguments with Liberals over this in the past that actually what they're arguing for is for more deaths. Because that is undoubtedly the answer as to what will happen if you allow these boats to continue crossing the Channel. And they are very exultant, and you will hear them on the Today programme every day, and you will hear them on World at One, and you'll see them in The Guardian. The lawyers and indeed the charities who look after and indeed facilitate the crossing of the Channel, some of these charities, always trying to argue simultaneously that there isn't a great increase in the number who are coming over and that they should all be allowed in anyway. I mean, it is an absurdity. What they're actually doing is arguing that perhaps we shouldn't take in the disabled, the women, the elderly, the children from countries where these people have actually made proper claims for asylum. Just allow these 28-year-old men into the country anyway. It's an absurdity, and it gets right at the heart of the Liberal kind of non sequitur argument. They are wrong on every issue. We do need to take refugees in. It's our kind of moral duty to do so. But the people we should take in are the most vulnerable, not the very young and lithe young men who climb off those boats in Dover every morning and who come from a democracy which enjoys rather nice weather and no war in sight. We should be taking in people who are genuinely vulnerable. But this doesn't seem to get through to the Liberals. All they can do is whine about how it's a bit overcrowded at Manston.
Stop the boats, and they certainly don't understand that, or they choose not to understand that. But I think, Rod, you're completely right to point out why the coverage of this crisis is so wrong, because there seems to be no concern from the BBC, for example, about the illegal migrants, many of whom are criminals, who are causing great pain to British citizens, and also, by the way, involving, again, innocent Brits in the drug trade and the prostitution rings that they are here to run.
No, you're absolutely right, mate. And it makes me wonder why the BBC in particular, but also much of the mainstream media, including much of the press, why are they so incurious about the damage caused to the country by these incomes? Why aren't there reporters, in Dover and Folkestone talking to local people about how they feel? I've heard one such bunch of vox pops from Folkestone, and that was a couple of weeks ago, where indeed the local people said we daren't go out at night. That was it. Why is no one actually crunching down the numbers as to or investigating the fact that in Kent at the moment, in that southern part of Kent, no children over the age of 11 will have a place in a state school next year because they are all taken up with asylum seekers. And it is remarkable that our journalists are as incurious about this as they were about the stuff that happened in Rotherham and Rochdale and Blackburn and those northern mill towns. It's the same lack of curiosity which, in the end, causes tragedies to happen.
No, it does. But unfortunately, Rod, and I'm pretty sure you agree with me on this, it really doesn't look like this new administration under Rishi Sunak has the political will, the guts, the balls, you might say, to tackle this issue head on. I believe that Suella Braverman does, the Home Secretary. I'm a huge fan of hers. She wants to leave the ECHR. She wants to ignore the lefty lawyers. But this has to come from the top, doesn't it? And what we've seen from Sunak over the past week is just what we saw unsuccessfully from Boris, which was, let's trust Macron.
Yeah. I mean, it's good that we're having better relations with France, because it's always good to have decent relations with your neighbour, apart from Wales, obviously. So that's a kind of...
We love the Welsh.
A little joke, look you. But there is another problem with Rishi, which is, and I think he's doing a good job at the moment, but there is a problem with Rishi, which is, of course, his Indian heritage probably means that he is not going to clamp down on the number of, because he wishes to preserve a trade deal as well, clamp down on the enormous numbers of people who are coming in from the subcontinent. So, no, I don't think that asylum seekers and immigration is anywhere near the top of Rishi's agenda. But if he looked at the opinion polls, he would see that, people do care about this.
No, indeed. Columnist extraordinaire, Rod Liddle. Hope all of our brilliant Welsh viewers didn't just switch off at that moment. Rod Liddle, we'll speak next week, Rod.